be my 60th year here in Pleasant Run Township, and actually for the church there, the Helpville Church. And through that time, when I came here, that I felt like it was the time that we need to join together. We had many of the churches that we worked through, so uniting them to promote love your neighbor and do what we could to improve situations that we had. And so when we did, we formed, and it was the Pleasant Run Improvement Organization called PRIO. And when we did, by forming this, we then, as I said, in the announcements we had to bring, we called churches and various churches. They got together, had hymn sings, Bible schools together, and all the things that everything was tried to work as one. And in order to bring this about, there were several things that we had, and it's easy to get off on some of those that would be back to like to what we were here for, to share with you something about how that the fire department entered into all of this. And so one of the things was that we was trying to get spaces where we could have a festival. We had it in the schoolyard, different places, went to Indianapolis and booked rides where this festival we had major rides to come in. We met up there in a hotel rather, and all the ride people that had the rides that we would make a permit to contract with them, and they would get a percentage of what we took in. But then we did, though, but they didn't have stands as far as refreshment stands, and so through the churches we had a large cook tent, and we was open 2 days, 2 weeks rather, and all the proceeds that went from that went into our expenses. And so by doing so, all the churches would pitch in and furnish their cooks, and so through that, so we had that work. And then later on, then beyond that, we had from out of Bloomington, we had, I think his name was Noel, one of the music brought down for entertainment. We brought in entertainment from outside to share with it. So all of these things took place early on, working, and like I said, we've had Bible school in all the different buildings around here, almost in this building here, even painted the roof, and then had Bible school in here, and the old Oddfellows building over here. So all these things that, and the reason I'm saying this, where we are now from where we were then. And everyone said they had a good feeling about working together and the support. And so anything that we ever come up with in a sport, we need the support of the community, and the best to get that is through the Lord and through, like I said, through the churches. And with the fellowship with the churches that we had, all the outlying churches and the three churches here in Helpville, that it worked out real good. And you know, I looked later and looked in that cook tent. You couldn't tell if what the denomination, if you want to call it that, because everybody realized that we're all serving the same God, and we're all doing the same thing that we're wanting to do, is to improve the things in our community, the things that we could do there. So among some of these things that said was the festival, and we used to have a grease pole and a grease pig and all the things for entertainment, a lot of things that there, and we'd all prepare for that particular time. And then Later on, though, that we got our own little rides. We had a small merry-go-round that we owned, and we had a swing set that we had, and then we had this little train. We had a little track that we ran up, and this little train that we ran for the kids, and so a number of things that we had for entertainment, tried all that we could do. So all this went on, and in due time, and then a number of other things that we tried to get was street lights and here around town. And so to get street lights, I went to the public service, and the only way they would put in street lights is if we paid in advance. That would have been they figured it would take 5 years for it to pay for their expenses that they was going to involve. So they came out, we went over the lot, so I figured out that it was going to be $120 per light. To have that much money, though, I figured that if each one would pay $20, it would pay it up for the 5 years that we had to put in. So that's the way we did it. We had we took in, and people around that light, if 5 people would support it. So of course, we got in situations that wanted a light where they had more people around it. There was some few, but we finally got across that they weren't individual lights. However, they could, if they wanted to pay the full $120 for them. But Clarence and Dorothy Falby handled that, and it was super. We was able to raise the money right away, and so they had street lights then. Benefited everyone. It's what we tried to get across, that even at night when they come in, to have the street lights here. So it was one of the projects we had. We was going to try to get also gas in here, and I got everyone signed up for that. And for Texas Gas, where they was coming through with it, they finally determined that the investment they was going to put into it was not going to be enough that actually we could go ahead, and so that didn't materialize. But they did, though. Then the other thing that we felt that we needed a park, and so there was nothing available around that we could get for a park where we could have a permanent place where we could have rides and have the festival too. And so up here on there were 446 and 58. There we was able to purchase that 2 acres in there for a park, and they didn't, of course, Lloyd didn't want to sell it, but then we really needed it, and so we were able to get that. So we started developing it and put in lights. And there's so many people that's involved, and you go back and try to. I know David Nicholson, probably his family is here, and so I should know them. And I knew him when I was just a little boy. So he was a lineman, and he helped he had actually instrumental helping us to get the lights in, get our park wired for it to have the lights. And I had some big speakers that I used. We put them up around, and so all this was going real good for that. And so to try to cut it shorter so it won't take long. That all of those things, really, we had a basketball, all of those things that went with it. And then so it was noised about that they was going to put a highway in, possibly down from Bloomington down into, it would reach down to 50. So I found out that it was long until what it was going to be, and they was talking about a scenic route. Well, we had some competition over at Bedford, what wanted it to come down and go nearer Bedford, but one of the things that went to Indianapolis, I found out early on that they weren't wanting to dump heavy traffic on into a still more heavy traffic. They just wanting to keep it there, and then also by building a road down the highway here that was in favor again of getting to 50. That would be a scenic view. They thought that they put in the road here would serve several purposes. It'd be a scenic view in this area, but when I was wanting to see it from this area around Hiltonville and the areas through here, Bartlesville and this area through here, 446 would be it came to be, it wasn't that number then. And several things were had in favor of that, doing it. So, but then I realized they came down and in the gymnasium up there, they had a meeting for a community meeting, and I would have been there, I heard of it. They was, and then by the conversations I've been having with them, they were ready for that what we had to offer. That they decided then that it would be like 446 across the lake and so forth. So when they did that, though, I did not know that right at that time what was going to happen next. When 446 came and split that park, as near center as it could have split it, and then divided it. And so then we was out of the park. We was back where we started from. And so then Lloyd and them, I told them that if we ever got rid of it, they have it back just for the same as we paid for it. I think it's $2,500. So we got that money back, but then finding another place, there's no other place around here that you could get for a park. And so finally, that place out on the corner, Mrs. Jackson had that property there. I went to her and talked to her, but everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people around had been trying to buy that piece of property, and it was not going to be for sale, period. But anyway, with it, praying and talking to her quite a bit about it, finally I said, but yeah, community really needs a park. And so so finally she said that she would sell it to us. And so then was able to get that property there then for, I could have got the farm and more space, but we had done well to get that piece of property. And so when we did, then the development, and then I knew it being a small area that to develop, that it had to be some, and I began to think about Disneyland or some of those places where that one fits back to the other and try to get everything that we could in that area there to be used to the most benefit. So the first thing I thought, it was, of course, a ball field, but that was a swamp out there on the corner, and we had a bunch of trees down along the highway there we cut the stumps, and so I got a dozer, in there that they for me. So what we did was buried in that corner there, we buried and dug a big hole in there, and all the stumps down along Gilgal Road there, that big stumps that come out of the trees are in the bottom of that. So what we did was took that and had it cut off and filled in down there to fill that area up. And so that was the beginning of the field. So after we got that in, got it packed down, and then got it backfilled from up on the side, then it began to look more like a field then. So after we got it packed, and then I went to up to IU, and they had I found out that they had a place there that where there's a group where they was wanting places to study for recreation, to put recreational places in it. So we came down and spent some time. I spent some time with them, and I told them some of the things that I'd like to have out there. First of all was the ball field, but that now we had it all leveled out and ready to pretty well to use in that area. So then I wondered about, I needed another area to where I was thinking about getting these little Dodge cars or something. So around out there, if you look on that south area, that there's a bank there, and we needed to have it all gravel. That we went out back then where it wasn't a great penalty. We started hauling that creek gravel. We had about 4 or 5. Well, we had about 5 big trucks in there, and it had a loader out there hauling it, and we put about 8 inches of gravel all around that, from the top down to the bottom and on that side. And on the north side, I was getting the cross ties or switch ties to make a stair step for bleachers up there where they could set in. And then I had arranged to have these little Dodge cars and hold different things in a kind of an arena there. And then also had, I thought about the tennis court up here on the upper side there, and then down where it goes down into the cemetery, there's a place in there that was low. That maybe if we went back in that and cleared it out, and to make a place to where you have barbecue grills back in there and put it all in decoration of the limestone or fieldstone and growth up. And then if they enlarged the cemetery, there could be a road south that goes south and take up the room in there for the cemetery. So I tried to do all the figuring out I could, but there's a lot went into it. Some of it never materialized. And then I also had a drawing of a community building. And I still got those drawings of it so that we didn't know then about the schools, what it was going to be, the gymnasium would be available. And I brought up a drawing, and this drawing was, it would have been 100 and some feet long, but 60 feet wide. And it would have in the center of it was going to have a stage type area. The south end of it was going to be a meeting room for senior citizens, or where you could have lunch rooms. And in this room there where the area, the north end of it then was going to be the gymnasium where they could play in with it. And then I also fixed it so that under the stairwell, under the rostrums there, or the stage area, put doors under it and put like folding tables on those and roll them underneath it. And then I had chairs that they could sit down. And then on this stage area, you could go from one to the other, bypassing in the center of it from the small area, and then you could, up on the stage area was having a double door, garage door where it could be dropped and locked, or you could raise it in and you could come up on that area from the south. So if you was having entertainment, you could come in and the restrooms would be in that area. So all of that, I still had the plans for it, and it was in the making and people was behind it, but you know, the things got in the way of it. We had some faction got in it. One thing happened to another, and so it didn't materialize. But then that way we could have something every month for some bring in some good entertainment then from off there on the stage, and then local entertainment. Then you could just drop that door down, everything was secured, or you could leave it up and then they'd have the gymnasium there that could be used. And it was all in their reach, and it was a simple plan and all this, and that way it was something in it for everybody, and the community could use it and still be used. I'm only saying that is that the things that's ahead of you, that there's a lot of things that you can still be doing. This is a milestone getting back to, and I'm not going to be way further on that because there are so many things ahead already in the works to get done.